Okay, Chris Peaks back with Brandon Moseley for our BCS State of Alabama podcast, and we have Alabama GOP Lieutenant Governor candidate here with us today, Dr. Nicole Wadsworth. So, Dr. Wadsworth, I guess I'll ask you the same question I asked all of our candidates now since we're in a campaign season. How's the campaign going?
It's going great, busy and blessed. We had a large forum last night with the Montgomery Republican Party. There were about 24 candidates who showed up. Most were statewide candidates. Good turnout.
Dr. Wadsworth, for people that don't understand, could you explain what exactly the lieutenant governor does other than step in if the governor suddenly dies or something?
Sure. So if you know anything about the history of the lieutenant governor's position, it was actually stripped of a lot of its formal power in the late 90s. By statute, I would preside over the Senate, vote in case of a tie, or make appointments. But you do need to be able to step in and steady the ship should anything ever happen to our governor. But there is a lot of creativity with the position as well. So that's what I'm going to do more with the position than what legally requires. And so I've come up with a platform actually called Build a Better Alabama, where I want to use my voice as Lieutenant Governor to improve the quality of life for Alabamians in five key areas. That's your industry recruitment and retention, workforce development, statewide infrastructure improvements, rural health care, and public safety. These affect all 5.1 Alabamians, whether you're in an urban area or a rural area. And that's why I'm running, because I want to make a difference.
So, Dr. Wadsworth, you're wanting to be a more proactive lieutenant governor than the predecessors?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had active lieutenant governors, we've had inactive lieutenant governors. I think our current lieutenant governor's done a great job, for example, with veterans with license reciprocity. That's a real big issue, especially with the amount of military spouses that we have coming to live in the state of Alabama. If they're licensed, let's say, to be an architect or an accountant in another state, why not have them be able to be employed in the state of Alabama without having, for example, to have to retake a bunch of classes that they've already taken?
Uh, Dr. Wadsworth, there were eight candidates or set, I think eight candidates running for this. One of
Yes.
them got removed from the ballot. We probably won't go into that.
Mhm.
But when you're out there in a field of seven, what do you do? What makes you stand out that you're the best of the seven in the bunch?
I am in the private sector, and I think it speaks volumes if you have somebody who's not tied down to political games, who's not trying to pivot from one position to another. I truly have done everything that I'm advocating for in the private sector, either through my company, on a board or committee, or as an individual. Just the lieutenant governor's office will give me more of a platform to help more people. You can only represent so many people as clients or so many people on a volunteer board. But as lieutenant governor, I can also have staff that will help me with these initiatives. I mean, we have a lot of, for example, generational poverty in the state of Alabama. And at the heart of my campaign is that I want to make sure that every Alabamian, from the high school student to the veteran, has a clear path to a good paying job. And that means meeting people where they're at, partnering with our high schools, our trade schools, our community colleges to put somebody on a pathway to employment. And, last night when I was speaking, I shared, I said, why is this important? Because when Alabamians are working, we all benefit. It keeps people off welfare, it reduces recidivism, and it gives a man or a woman a sense of purpose by being able to pay for something with a paycheck that he or she has earned.
Dr. Wadsworth, I know we're still early and just looking at the polls, I think there's like 50 or 60% of the people undecided. And I think
Yes.
Secretary Allen still has the lead. What do you have to do to
Mhm.
convince these people to vote for Nicole Wadsworth?
Well, I think the big thing is to vote for Nicole Jones Wadsworth. You know that I'm not a career politician, that, I have truly put in the work over the years learning our state. I have traveled to all 67 counties over 25 times on my own dime, not the taxpayers' dime, not the Alabama Republican Party's dime, on my own money, really learning the needs of the people of Alabama before I ever asked for a vote. And since announced last May, I'm out there, I'm speaking anywhere from 4 to 10 times a week. I'm visiting not only with GOP groups, but different companies and everyday individuals to just continue to understand how I can utilize the office to help them. I don't want Alabama to be last in everything. I want us to shine. And we need people in office who aren't tied down to a political cesspool, that really have the best interest of folks at heart if we want to make our state better.
Dr. Wadsworth, the Alabama's got high unemployment, well, not high unemployment, a low workforce participation rate.
Mhm. Right.
We have high taxes compared to some of our neighbors. We have a 5% statewide corporate income tax. Well, like you could go to Florida and you pay zero. I mean, I think Tennessee has moved to zero, and Mississippi and Georgia have both cut their state income taxes below lower than what Alabama has. How do you lure companies to come to this place, given, that, it doesn't necessarily, if you're a profitable company, it's going to cost you more to be here.
Well, that's twofold. So as far as the workforce participation rate, companies, before a major company comes to the state of Alabama, they do their research. A lot of it now on the front end is internet based as far as how they get their data. So, for example, a defense contractor that deals with space, they might want to go to Huntsville because you have a large population of aerospace engineers in that area. But there are other pockets of the state that don't have the workforce participation because it's almost like a cycle of generational poverty where it's kind of instilled in their family that you can make more money from the government on welfare than you can having a job. But you also have to have compassion and be able to meet people where they're at and understand that you don't know what you don't know. So my husband's in the legislature. We worked for a few years with the Alabama Community College system because he comes from a very rural county, Winston County, where to this day, 1 out of 4 people still don't have a high school diploma. So what we did was we worked with Wallace State Community College to bring a distant learning center into rural Winston County, which opened August 1st of 2025. And what it does is it allows people to take the GED classes for free. Then they get their GED, and then the state of Alabama comes in, they kick in a one free community college class at any of the schools. So they can go to Bevel and Jasper, they can go to Wallace and Coleman, they can go to Calhoun and Decatur. And so it just starts that pathway to employment and those conversations on, okay, so, you've got your GED, let's work on a credential, let's work on a certificate, let's work on a GED or a bachelor's degree and get you employed with one of our industries. But with the tax structure, you've got to be careful. I'm looking at data. Somebody asked me this at a forum a couple of weeks ago. You got to be really careful before you just completely do an overhaul on a state's tax structure. I mean, for example, Florida, they have lower income taxes, but they have the highest property taxes. So if you're a company wanting to invest, the amount that you're going to be paying to the state of Florida in that particular county for property tax is very different than you'd be paying in the state of Alabama. So I'm open to options, to looking at different structures, but I don't want to say yes or no, or we need to do this without, having accurate data.
Dr. Wadsworth, he was talking about helping the citizens, off welfare and jobs. Have you ever given any thought about what the state can do to help the Black Belt region? Because that's almost like a third world country.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting that you said that. I've really taken a lot of time over the course of my career and during the campaign to visit the Black Belt because a lot of folks say, we're kind of forgotten. And that breaks my heart. But I would love to bring a distant learning center. And I met with some of the leadership in Greene County recently. And I told them the biggest asset that y'all have that you need to play up is you have an interstate exit. That is huge, that Utah exit, as far as industrial recruitment, because roads are very expensive. They're expensive to build. They take a long time. I mean, as far as a road, a highway of that magnitude, it takes approximately 10 years from the time that a civil engineer is drawing out road plans to the time that constituents are actually driving on that road. So I said, play up the infrastructure that you already have. And I've talked to some other communities too about, ones, for example, with historic downtowns. These downtowns are filled with wonderful small businesses that are a lot of times owner operators. Said, come up with a local tourism committee and promote what you have, because if you promote what you have, your community will gradually build. But I also told somebody in Jackson County recently that if y'all want a coffee shop, for example, and you're downtown, and somebody takes their money and they put a coffee shop there, please go to that local coffee shop and support them. And don't go down the road to the corporate one, because, I mean, nothing wrong with corporate ones, but if you want somebody to come into your area, the local population has to support them. I mean, they have to make money just like anybody else, otherwise they're going to leave. So, to answer your question, I'm willing to work with the black belt. I've started those conversations. Funny thing, there was a gentleman I met. It's Uncle Willie's Barbecue. Uncle Willie's been making barbecue at home since like 1965. So for Christmas this year, my husband and I bought a case of his barbecue sauce, and we put it in our little gift baskets that we gave to family and friends, because we had kind of like a made in Alabama gift basket. So get more people to do that, and just great folks. So I'll give Uncle Willie a plug. If you want barbecue sauce, it's only $6 a bottle. No different than you'd get at the grocery store, but you're supporting a local business.
We've been real successful, especially through KIV's administration, at luring companies, Mazda, Toyota, Blue Origin, Polaris, et cetera, to the Huntsville area. And now they're getting Space Command and, like 1,500 FBI agents, out there at Redstone Arsenal with the Missile Defense Agency.
Sure.
Are we reaching a point in Huntsville and Madison County where we've out-recruited the road infrastructure in the area? And do we need to push, to pull back on some of that explosive growth?
Well, that's twofold. So I'm from Huntsville, Madison County, and over the years, I mean, even the last 5 years, the explosive growth that they've had is really amazing. But you have to think about, with every full-time job that comes in for one of these companies, they say it creates an average of 2.5 what we call secondary jobs. So those are like your construction workers, your dry cleaners, your hamburger flippers, all of these folks that support everyone in their day-to-day life. So you you can't completely stop recruitment if somebody in particular is using their own funds. I mean, I'm all about private property rights, and personally, a lot of my clients are self-funded. So if they want to recruit a company of 100 and they don't need any state or local tax dollars to do it, they're entitled to build that warehouse and recruit that company on their own. But you have to make sure that we are carefully planning and advocating for that infrastructure development. Do I think the growth is going to continue to come in? Absolutely. But again, if you look at that 10-year timeline for road projects, that's why it's really important at the state level. Even though as Lieutenant Governor, I can't allocate any road funding, I do have a voice. I could talk to our partners in Washington, whether it be President Trump, whomever that next president is, our United States congressmen, our United States senators, the United States Department of Transportation, use my voice to make sure that the federal tax dollars that we're already paying into DC are brought back to Alabama where they belong. North Alabama, where we've got the book under the state, South Alabama, I mean, around the port and I-10 and all of the growth that's going on in Mobile and Baldwin County, very similar to North Alabama. And you do have a large sector of that defense industry, of course, that support Austal and other industries in that area that help our federal partners.
Dr. Wadsworth, is there one issue in particular that you think is the most important issue facing our state right now?
Well, industry recruitment and retention and workforce, those issues go hand in hand. You know, you can recruit all of the companies that you want, but that retention piece is so important. Companies want to know that they have a quality and skilled workforce, but then, families want to know that they have, good schools, that they have good roads, that they live in safe neighborhoods. So that's where that public safety element, goes in. The two biggest questions three biggest questions really when a client is looking at, either expanding or relocating to Alabama, they always ask me about, what type of workforce do you have? They're worried about how quickly can my people get to and from the plant? How quickly can we get our trucks loaded and unloaded? And then that public safety, because, these people that are moving in, they want to know that their wives and their husbands and kids are safe, but also if they have like millions of dollars of inventory in a warehouse, they don't want to put their company somewhere where they have to worry about theft every day either. So it's all part of that economic development ecosystem.
Dr. Wadsworth,
Mhm.
the HBO did a documentary here about the Alabama prison system. This thing's been nominated for an Academy Award.
Mhm.
Um, the issues they bring up there, are those real issues that we as Alabamians need to be concerned about, or is that just sort of liberal propaganda, just trying to stir up trouble among prisoners that just they had nothing better to do with on their time? They
I
want to
have
complain
not
about their situation.
I have not watched the documentary, but I will say that there were a lot of people in jail who don't necessarily need to be in there. Now, if you're a murderer, you're a rapist, you do your time, you need to be there. But petty crimes or failure to pay, I mean, there's a lot of indigent people that have gone to prison just because they don't have $500 to hire an attorney to get them out. So you've got to be careful with that. But the pathway really to eliminating crime, or not eliminating it, but reducing it greatly is through employment. Because I mean, you look at the majority of people who are in jail, they're not educated. A lot of them, they don't have a high school degree, a broken family. I mean, a lot of times it's a one parent household or no parent household, extreme issues of poverty where they feel like they have to rob people in order to survive. And, they need role models, they need mentors. And again, a pathway to employment can solve so many of those issues. I visited with a police chief in Hackleburg that's affiliated, for example, with a nonprofit organization that they help former inmates integrate back into the workforce. And they do it in such a way where the companies that they partner with, they're at no risk of hiring the inmate because the nonprofit pays their salary for a year. And then if there's something wrong with behavior, for example, they can go ahead and send them back to the program. They're not required to keep them. But most people, if they've gone through the prison system and they say, hey, I want to do better, um, and they get involved with a nonprofit like that, it's a win-win situation. And, that's the whole goal, right? Because if you go to prison, you don't have a mentor or you don't have anybody advocating for you when you get out with your $10 in a bus ticket, guess what? You're probably going to go right back to what you know, which is crime. So we got to be honest about these issues instead of just complaining about them all the time. Let's do something. Instead of building prisons, let's, help people get their lives back on track so they don't have to be there in the first place.
You know,
But,
Wadsworth, listen to you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
Oh, listen to you, talk about economic development and jobs, and hearing you a while ago, say, good jobs and good schools and good roads. It reminded me of the messages of populism that Governor Wallace, used to talk about. Would you describe yourself as a modern day populist?
I wouldn't say I'm a business person. You know, everything that I'm advocating for are, issues that my clients or their families have brought up. But you think about the everyday person, what do you want? What do you want to make sure that you can get to and from work in a safe manner, that you have food on the table. Those are just basic everyday needs that the people have. So, I want to be that lieutenant governor who advocates for the common man. Rural health care is another issue that I talk about a little bit that affects every Alabamian, no matter where you live. And the reason why is because when Alabamians are healthy, when they're healthy, they're working. When they're working, we all benefit. I mean, I represent one client who's a physician that was able to earn a $700,000 per year grant to practice in two economically impoverished Alabama counties. Medicine's a business just like anything else. Why not have a lieutenant governor that knows where the pockets of money are and can bring them back to the state? And so what he did with part of his grant money was he purchased a van, and his staff will take the van, bring it to patients' homes who don't have transportation, pick them up, bring them to the doctor, and bring them back home. And the point is that not only has he helped get these folks healthy again, who wouldn't otherwise go to the doctor, but they're now employed and they're able to purchase their own vehicles of their own. So again, I look at everything from a long-term economic development perspective. You just can't think about tomorrow. You have to constantly be looking at how are we going to shape our state for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road and truly leave a legacy that's going to make a difference. And that's what I'm wanting to do.
President Trump has recently made headlines by having, his ICE agents out there more aggressively pursuing people that are illegally in this country or people that, were legally allowed in the country but have committed aggravated felonies since they've been here, thus,
Yeah,
have deportation orders.
right.
Um, has this, enhanced ICE activity and, the virtual collapse of people crossing in the country illegally across the southern border, has that been detrimental to businesses in Alabama, or have we been able to overcome?
Well, there are certain industries that, are known to employ people who might not legally be in the country. So I'm sure that it's affected them in some way. But on the same note, I'm more worried about mayors and municipalities that say we're a sanctuary city and it's okay. It's not okay. It's a violation of federal law to even have a quote unquote sanctuary city, and police officers being told that they don't have to enforce orders from ICE agents. This is simply ludicrous. So, we all have to get back to the basics of general, law and order. If the federal law enforcement, issues an order, people have to comply with it, whether they like it or not. If you don't like it, vote in a different president with a different agenda. But, right now, we've got to support the men and women that are here doing what they're employed to do.
Dr. Wadsworth, going back to the prison a while ago, you mentioned we have people in there that don't need to be there. And I've said this for a long time. Do you think we need to look at making for nonviolent felons, looking at other options besides sending them to prison? Because once you send them there, it's almost like a revolving door.
Yeah, and again, and I look at it on a case by case basis. I mean, if you don't have any priors, in law, my husband's an attorney, they call them priors. So if you don't have any priors and you end up going to prison for some petty crime and then you just don't have the money to get out, you could help somebody like that. Um, the root cause, though, again, is a lack of employment, family issues, societal issues, socioeconomic issues. You still, how do I put this? Everybody has their own free will and they have a choice on whether or not to commit a crime. But on the same note, our taxpayer dollars, when they're funding a prison, when they're funding food and water, we better be funding the murderers and the rapists and people that commit aggravated battery that are really more of a danger to people, they're more of a danger to people on the street. I mean, I know of a client that was arrested because he didn't pay his garbage bill. And how on earth somebody, spent some time in jail because they didn't pay a garbage bill, that type of thing is very, very wrong. And we need people to be honest when it comes to, what are we doing? Like, what's the end goal? Do you want the guy in jail who didn't pay a garbage bill? Or do you want the guy in jail who went and beat up his mother? You got to weigh it all differently.
Dr. Wadsworth, the current Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, has, had a very public dispute with the current governor, Kay Ivey, over the West Alabama Highway. Ainsworth thought the money should have been spent, widening I-65 from Mobile all the way to the state line. And the governor felt that the people in West Alabama needed a 4-lane. If the federal government wasn't going to pay for it, we were just going to borrow, do the bond issue and build it ourselves.
Right.
I don't want to get you in too much trouble, but do you want to take a side in that debate?
I'm not really going to take a side, but I will say this. I travel I-65 every single day, and it is a crapshoot as far as how long it's going to take you anywhere to get anywhere. I mean, you truly don't know. I've taken pictures, or my husband's been driving, and I'll take videos of somebody has a flat tire when you're on a 2-lane road, and then it's backed up for miles and miles and miles. People yesterday that came to Montgomery, or people Tuesday for session, it might be on Google Maps 2 hours from their home, but it might take them 4 hours if there's an incident. So there definitely has to be a priority with I-65, but I am pro infrastructure. In West Alabama, if that's going to help them get industry, then I want to make sure that we're advocating for all of Alabama, north, south, east, and west, because that is one of the most critical needs for companies when they're going to locate large projects.
Dr. Wadsworth, here recently on our podcast, we've had former Congressman Mo Brooks on, and he has went after Secretary of State Wes Allen for legislation he's trying to get passed to prohibit naturalized citizens from being able to hold office in the state of Alabama. Do you have a comment on that?
Yes, naturalized citizens did it the right way. I've met actually some elected officials in the state of Alabama who are naturalized citizens. So I am all for allowing people to vote who have done it the right way. I think it's either 50,000 or 90,000 naturalized citizens that we have in the state of Alabama. Why would you not want them to vote? That's almost like giving votes to the other side, to the other party. So I think I just think it's silly. We need to we don't need to bar people who have come to the country for the right reasons and done what they're supposed to do, the ability to write, the right to vote, because that's what makes us American.
This summer, we had a case in Bibb County that I think horrified everybody that saw it, where, a bunch of folks, including some couple of moms, were pimping out small children as young as 3 to weird people for money. They
That's
were chained
horrible.
up in a dungeon that,
Horrible.
I mean, if it was a movie, you wouldn't believe it was real.
Yeah.
The
Horrible.
legislature responded, and yesterday they passed it where if you're, convicted of raping a child under the age of 12, the Alabama courts can execute you. Um, Understanding, the natural revulsion to what we saw going on in Bibb County,
Mhm.
did the legislature go too far with the death penalty for a
If you do
crime where you
that,
didn't actually kill somebody?
if you do that to a child, you are so worked and messed up, you cannot be helped. I mean, there is no amount of counseling that can help somebody who is that sick. So I 100% support the Alabama legislature and the governor for passing that.
Dr. Wadsworth, we've got so many candidates in this race, and here recently we've seen Secretary Allen go after A.J. McCarron when he was still in it. Dean Odle, and here recently John Wall over an alleged fake ID. Do you think this race is going to turn even more dirtier?
It would not surprise me, but I'm telling everyone, beat everyone, vote Nicole. I've got my buttons in Alabama and Auburn. Like you see when you go to the games, they say beat everyone. Nicole Jones Wadsworth for lieutenant governor. And I'm not into getting into fights with folks. I told my campaign staff and my volunteers that we're running a clean race. I have no time for political games. I wouldn't take it in a boardroom. I'm certainly not going to take it in the race for lieutenant governor. I just want to see good people in office and folks do the right thing. So, the other candidates and we've been nice to one another, and I hope that continues.
Dr. Wadsworth, the House this week passed a bill that would ban foreign nationals, well, from donating to political campaigns in the state of Alabama. Do you think that reform was needed?
You wonder where dark money comes from, and you have to be careful with who donates it. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another, but I can understand, the reasoning as to why that was passed. Because if you have outside foreign nationals trying to influence American elections, we've heard about how that's been done on the nationwide level and the type of attention it gets. Why do we need that here? We already have unlimited corporate donations, unlimited personal donations. People can get money for their campaigns through other avenues.
Dr. Wadsworth, I think we all can agree that Senator Tuberville is going to be the next governor of Alabama. Have you talked to him about the agenda he has and how you could help promote that?
Yeah, we've actually gotten to know one another on the campaign trail. He even invited me to his tent at the Iron Bowl. I think we have a lot of similar initiatives. Of course, the governor has the real power and the real budget and has a cabinet. But as far as, with the workforce, with infrastructure, with making Alabama a great place to live, the retention piece, I think that we complement one another. I'm looking to support whomever that governor is. Of course, I could still stand on my own 2 feet, but when you both have a similar agenda, it certainly makes the messaging easier, and it makes, helping Alabamians easier. I like Coach.
We've had an issue with, probably about 60% of the children in the state get SNAP benefits, and that's what they eat off of.
Right.
And unfortunately, it seems like most of those children have become overweight. Would you support limiting what you can buy on SNAP, or we can't have, I like Cheetos too, but maybe Cheetos and sodas shouldn't be something the U.S. government pays for with our tax dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of goes along with my rural health care and a healthy Alabama plan. You look at, let's say, obesity, it's also a precursor for other diseases, for example, heart disease. And if you come from a family where all you're fed every day is potato chips or sugary drinks, you look at the long-term effects of eating in an unhealthy way. At least if somebody's getting government subsidized SNAP benefits, they can have, let's say, a banana instead of potato chips, or a salad, or, some lean meats. It's very important, I think, to, again, if you're getting the benefits for free anyway, let's go ahead and put a requirement in there where, people have to make at least semi-healthy choices. Because if not, we end up paying for it. It's long term. if people are unhealthy, the taxpayer dollars end up paying for the unhealthy behaviors.
Dr. Wadsworth, we were talking about employment earlier. The last couple of years, AI has became part of everybody's lives. I love playing with it every day, but it seems like it's taking the place of humans. Are you concerned that we're going to become an unemployed society? And how do we replace these jobs?
Well, AI is interesting. It's kind of the wild, wild west right now.
Yeah.
I think certain industries are learning how to integrate it into their daily lives or daily workplace initiatives. Um, Certainly, it can replace some jobs, but I'm more worried about, we've got to be on the cusp, and we have to be the ones who understand that technology more than, let's say, our foreign adversaries like a China or a Russia. But on the same note, there's part of me that worries that Americans are going to stop learning how to think. Like, you still need to learn how to write. Like, I can tell immediately when somebody uses AI to write. If they use three-letter words and then all of a sudden they're coming up with these quotes with using erudite vernacular, they've probably used AI. So you heard probably about that case in North Alabama where there was an attorney that submitted a brief and it had fake cases on it. And he used AI to write this brief, and the cases weren't even legitimate cases that he used for examples. So, it can be a tool, but just make sure to research how you use that tool before you use it blindly. I see it both ways. It could be a good thing and a bad thing. I just want to make sure Alabamians and Americans still are smart and they learn how to think. You can't let a computer do everything for you.
We've had about 20, 25 years where there was a lot of money and effort to put computers and tablets in all our
Mhm.
classrooms.
Right.
Replace the textbooks with tablets. We replaced a lot of, teacher instruction with
Mhm.
computer programs that are supposed to teach the subject material. And
Right.
we're starting to see, especially with the younger children,
Mhm.
that might not have been the wisest strategy. So I think the House passed a bill last week limiting the amount of screen time for pre-K and kindergarten students.
Mhm.
Is that something we really need to start looking at? Did we put the computer too much in the classroom?
We do have to look at that. So there have been some studies that I've read over the years that say that the brain actually loses about 30 to 40% more information reading off of a screen versus reading in print. So, I own a commercial real estate practice. I look at a lot of contracts, and what I do is I will print out everything, because when I've tried to look and see if there are errors on the computer screen directly, I'll always catch more if I print it out and look at it. So it does make a difference. I know, years ago too, schools had put computers in because they said, well, paper's so expensive, we can save money without having to go to a copy machine. But again, if you're losing the information and you're not retaining it, then what's the point of being there to learn? So I do believe in real books, real paper. There's been somewhat of a movement I've seen with local bookstores around the state trying to keep people, back in the bookstores, reading real books, not just using the Kindle. There's a little bookstore in downtown Tuscaloosa I went to. And they were sharing that with me, and it was good to see so many people out there reading real books.
Along
But
the same line, but I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Wadsworth.
no, no, I was just going to say, you need computers. Okay. You need computers. They're a tool, but you also need to learn how to read, and you need to learn how to write. You need to learn how to do math. You need to learn those because those are basic skills for life. I mean, how many times have we all gone to the store and gone to give somebody change and they don't know how to give you back the change? So, like, if the total is 1802 and you go, here's 2 pennies, give me $2
Yeah.
back, they'll say something like, oh, it'll mess the computer up. You know, it's like it breaks
Yeah,
my
I've
heart,
seen
but
that.
I think, how many times do you see that? I mean, it happens to us every week.
Hmm.
So it's basic reading, writing, arithmetic is really important skills.
Um, along those same lines, I mean, is there really a way to stymie this though? Because like, like when I write something on my website, when it's me putting there, I put my name on it. But like
Yeah.
when this interview's done, I'll load it up to YouTube and then I'll put it in AI and I'll say, hey, write me an article. And in 5 seconds, it'll write the entire article, give me timestamps of everything we talked about on there. Is there a way to
Right.
really to make people say, hey, yeah, I mean, I'm just afraid that we're going down a path now. We can't, the genie's out of the bottle.
Right. No, I mean it's I have no idea the direction that AI is such a new I mean AI has been around forever. I will say like we've all over the years called on a telephone and had like press
Yeah,
one if you want to talk to
exactly.
so and so. But at the level that it's able to think for us has increased so rapidly in recent years that you know, I don't know which way it's going to go. Again, we need to understand the technology. We need to understand how to integrate it into our society, but don't ever underestimate the power of the human mind. We need to educate our kids. We need to educate our adults. The world isn't going to be completely replaced with machines, so we need to figure out as a society how to best utilize it to our advantage.
Dr. Wadsworth, we have fewer and fewer rural hospitals, and more of those rural hospitals that we still have don't have like obstetricians or orthopedists or
Right.
a heart doctor. So even if you lucky enough to have a rural hospital in your county, you're probably still driving 50, 60 miles to have a baby or get a broken arm fixed, or see your heart doctor. Is there a solution to this issue, or are we just not going to have good health care in like half of our counties in the future?
Well, sometimes you can find federal grant money. So again, I have some clients that are physicians that have been able to utilize a pocket of grant money called FQHCs, Federally Qualified Healthcare Centers. And the money is specifically designed for low income areas. They have the population has to be a certain percentage below the poverty line. There's a specific formula that they use before they distribute the grant money. So there are pockets of money in there to incentivize doctors to practice in rural areas because, medicine's a business just like anything else. So if you don't have a lot of volume, you might not be as successful in an area that you're seeing, 10 times the amount of patients. So I'm willing to just help raise awareness to creative ways to get people into rural areas to practice. Personally, we have a vested interest. Our daughter, she is studying biology right now. She wants to go to medical school. Thank the good Lord, she wants to stay in Alabama to practice, but she said, Mom, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind practicing in a rural area. She wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. She said the reason is that, I'm going to be in my office seeing patients all day. So I don't mind driving 30 or 45 minutes to the office because I can go shopping on the weekend when my surgery clinic is closed. So let's promote Alabama. Let's promote the quality of life. Let's get pockets of money where they need to go and help our rural areas.
Um, Dr. Wadsworth, we've kept you over 45 minutes. I think that's all I have, unless Brandon's got something else he would like to ask. Um, Otherwise, is there something you'd like to, Brandon, do you have any other questions?
No, that's all I need. Thank you so much for being on here today with us, Nicole.
Thank you. And I'll just close out with saying I appreciate y'all having me on the show today. And for the viewers who are listening, I'm Nicole Jones Wadsworth. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor, and I would be honored to earn your vote on May 19th, because together we can build a better Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
so
Wadsworth.
much.
I'll get
Thank
this
y'all.
loaded up to YouTube and I'll tag you in it later.
Sounds great. You are somewhere sunny right now, aren't you? I keep seeing
Yes,
that
ma'am.
sun pop in behind you.
I'm sitting out here in my yard behind my garage.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, I enjoyed being on your show, and y'all call me if you ever need anything.
Thank you so much, Dr.
All right.
Wadsworth.
Thank you. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.